Hi, I'm Ivy too, and this is CVC Interviews. I'm a new host here today, and I'm really excited to announce our guest today, Faith McCann, from the Magical Alternative Show that's on the Community Voice channel. Hi Faith, how are you?
Great. Hi Ivy, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to learn more about the Magical Alternative. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's a late night, well, my concept of it is to be a late night talk show, and as the Magical Alternative sounds, it's going to be unique and different and cover fascinating, magical, interesting concepts, people, ideas. We're trying to stay away from politics. That's been done to death out there. Mm-hmm. And we want to just feature people and things out in our community that are just really amazing, that make our world a more positive, beautiful place, and we don't really seem to give a lot of focus to lately.
Yeah, so what inspired you to create that show?
Oh my goodness, I've been wanting to do concepts, little bits and pieces of this whole thing for a long time, from having a blog a long time ago, back when blogs were a thing. I don't know if they're still a thing. And of course I teach in my own place. Then I started Facebook videos and then kind of moved on to YouTube videos, and I've been wanting to kind of put all the pieces together for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of trying to develop a similar idea on YouTube and never really was able to kind of get it to the place I'd like to. And then this whole CVC happened, and yeah, they had everything I needed to make it happen.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you keep mentioning concepts. What type of concepts?
Well, good news. There's so many. Every now and then, I always listen to the news, watch the news every day, read different things in different newspapers every day, and it's always that one story that, you know, makes me smile, makes me happy, makes me like, oh my goodness, you know, we need more stories like that. And then it's buried with all the depressing, negative. I mean, the news is the news. We're not going to stop the negative, but when the really good story, the happy story, the story that makes you, you know, feel good, that kind of gets buried and kind of pushed aside. It's like, we need to focus on this more often. Why don't we hear about that more often? So I wanted to, you know, kind of give a focus on that. So,
So in your latest interview with Janet Farrar, it really felt personal. It was like a story from a friend. So I was really curious, in the people you bring onto your show, what do you look for? What type of traits? How do you know them? Like, it seemed like you had a very personal relationship with her.
Oh, I've known Janet for years. She is amazing. She's been a magical master, a mentor of mine for, oh my goodness, forever. I started by first reading her books, and then when I started my little store, it's actually a school store type of place. I invited her one time to come and do a workshop. In our world, it's really kind of a small world. Even though she's one of the most famous authors in our genre in the world, you can just send an email, send a letter, and she wrote back and she says, sure, when I come to the United States, I'd be happy to come to your store. And she did, and I've done that to a lot of magical masters. I've written to them, and they're just very accessible, very wonderful, normal people that, you know, don't allow celebrity to put them on a pedestal where they're not reachable. And it was great to meet her and learn from her, and we've just become friends, her and Gavin, her husband, and I'm basically picking and choosing my friends and people I've learned and learned from and met over the years to be my guests on my show for the first several months, and then I'll start to kind of go out into the community, because I've met so many amazing people over the last 40 years. of practice and just getting to know people. So it just came to a point where it's like, I know so many, or I've met so many amazing people that make such a difference in the world. I would just love to share them with the whole world. And all of a sudden it just like happened.
Wow, well that's incredible. So actually, how did you start on your magical path? I know you're the owner of Enchantment School for the Magical Arts and Witch Shop, but you were also previously an instructor at MCC, Manchester Community College. I saw something about martial arts, and also a historian, so you have a lot going on. So what brought you?
One at a time.
Yeah. What brought
I
you
did
here?
one at a time. Well, I've always considered myself a magical person from probably the age of 10 or 12.
Okay.
I grew up on a farm, and
Where?
Colchester, Connecticut.
Okay.
And way back when, it's a different town now. A lot of people live there compared to when I grew up there. I grew up on a dairy farm, and I mean, when we had summer vacation from school, I mean, you were on the farm all summer. There was like, you know, I'd talk to my friend on the phone, but you were like attached to the phone with the landline, you know, for hours if your mom or dad weren't home. But I lived, you know, on a farm, and there were orchards and fields and streams and woods, and just playing and out in nature all the time. And it was just such a natural thing. We weren't really brought up in any religion. It was just, it just was something I've always known about myself, that I was magical. I don't know that I called myself a witch when I was young, but as I became an adult, I came across a few books. Janet's was one of them. There weren't a lot of books in the late 70s, early 80s in this country. Now there's millions. But there were a few books that I came across, and I was like, hey, that's me. You're talking about me.
Was Janet's one of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Witch's Bible. And so when you started reading things that you identify with, you recognize yourself, and you're like, okay, that makes so much sense. And I have been practicing for over 40 years now, and I've just always known it about myself. It's like when you recognize something in yourself, whether it's like something like you love music. Somebody doesn't have to, you know, tell you, well, it's hard, like when did you first know you liked music?
Right.
Or I even equate it with individuals that might find themselves, you know, they identify with the LGBTQIA plus community, you know. When did you think you were gay or lesbian? I mean, it's just something you know.
Yeah.
And as a magical person, you just know.
Yeah. So witches like seem to be misunderstood.
Oh yeah.
Feared even.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes looked at as evil. So how would you describe a witch? And can you tell us like what and who is a witch?
Well, the thing about that, you're absolutely right. They are feared and they are misunderstood. We are. Because people, they believe fairy tales, and they believe legend and lore. And, you know, if I haven't, I'm going to be talking about this in more detail on my show, but people will watch any kind of movie from Star Wars to Lord of the Rings to whatever the movie is, and they know it's fictional. They're watching this movie. It's a fictional movie. Even if it's portraying a real story, it's a fictional movie. Those people are actors. It's not real. Then they watch a horror movie, and they believe it.
Yeah.
They absolutely believe that's true, that dolls can be possessed. And I don't get it. Walks into my place all the time.
Really?
I don't think people even realize that when they come in and they tell me the stuff that they are either having these nightmares or whatever, that they think the stuff is really happening to them, that they're actually picking it up from horror movies.
Wow.
They really are imprinted with it. They really believe it. It's not that it's not true to them. So you have to walk a fine line, but most of it is just, it's not true. Horror movies are not true. I love them, but I actually study them almost like as part of my job. You know, the latest one comes out, it's like I need to see what I'm going to be dealing with. We are simply human beings that love nature. A lot of people, I actually had a relative once call me godless.
Oh, wow.
But we work with a deity, a god or a goddess or an all creative being on a daily basis, not just on Christmas or Easter or when you go to church. We work with a god all the time. There are many of us that might look at many, you know, deities or call them by different names, but so do Catholics when they work with saints.
Yeah, yeah.
I personally, I believe in one creative being that is neither female or male. When you look at something that's created the sun and the planets and the universe, I mean, I can't personalize it down to a human being. You know, God created human in, you know, its image. No, we created God in our image. Because that's how we can wrap our brain around it. So, but I absolutely believe there's something greater than us. And to call us evil, that's just ignorance.
Yeah.
That's ignorance. It's the same as anyone else looking at any other race or creed or culture or religion or belief or anyone that comes from anywhere or looks different or lives differently or loves differently, and their fear, their ignorance, their lacking of wanting to learn more about them, and then labeling them as something to be feared. We see that every day today.
Yeah, I feel like society has a problem with seeing things that are different and immediately labeling it as bad and negative.
Yeah, and we're seeing it every single day. We're not getting away from it. I think it's actually getting worse right now, and that's really scary. And people have asked me, why do you use the word witch? And I'll answer them, you know, the word American around the world has a really negative flavor for a lot of people in a lot of other countries. A lot of people I've heard have gone traveling around the world, they don't use the term American. They'll use tourists, they'll use, you know, whatever their ancestry is, you know. Well, I'm not going to change, you know, that I'm an American any more than I'm going to change that I'm a witch.
Sure.
So it's just what feels right to me. So you have to feel, you know, comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah, sure. So you recently quoted that witches are real and see magic in everything and never outgrow it. So by outgrow it, do you mean that everyone maybe has a bit of magic in them, but it gets lost or outgrown?
Oh, absolutely. You can see this because if you ask any small child, you know, say 4 or 5, you know, if there's such thing as magic, most look at you like, of course, what's wrong with you? Of course there's magic. You know, children see magic in everything. That's wonderful. They're wonderful. They see magic. And magic, I think, is a very fluid term. I think people sometimes expect me to do things like take a rabbit out of a hat. That's stage magic. That's sleight of hand.
Right.
The magic I work with is more found on the quantum physics level. There's a difference between magic and religion. Magic is science. Wicca is a religion, so there is a difference. And when it comes to the science of magic, it is found in every single ancient culture that is on the face of the earth.
Wow.
It is found in every indigenous tribe, in every country, on every piece of soil on the earth. Ancient tribes, and that's what we are, we're tribal, have magic in their ancestry. Some of it has been evolved into religious practice today. Some is folk magic, some is superstition, but it's still there.
Yeah, actually in my culture, I'm Kenyan and we have tribes.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so one of the tribes I am part of is Kalenjin, and they have witch doctors.
Yes.
However, there is like a dominant like religion, so now the witch doctors are seen as crazy, but people still go to them. They get their herbs and teas. I actually got to visit a witch doctor, and I got some leaves to drink because I had like some ailment happening.
Okay.
Now I wasn't able to drink it because I left it there, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
But it's really interesting that you say that it's like seen in many different cultures.
Yeah.
It's not isolated to like one place.
No.
Yeah.
And in just about every ancient culture, you know, at one time before patriarchy came in ancient times, they were matriarchal cultures. And matriarchal cultures don't mean that they were run exclusively by women. Most of them had a very equal male-female balance, power dynamic. And, but the whole point was that the women, the matriarchal part of it was fairly equal. And eventually that shifted and that changed. But the potions and the healing herbs and things like that were very common back then, and you found in all of the ancient cultures had that as what we would call magic. But some of it has split off and it has become modern pharmaceuticals, not just the holistic, not just the herbal practice. Pharmaceuticals themselves, over 70, it's gone down a little bit, but over 70% of them come from some type of plant-based product, except when they're pharmaceuticals, they are regulated. Every single pill or dose is equal. When you're making tea at home, you can't assure yourself of that. I do not recommend anyone to do any kind of medical treatment or to do any medical treatment on anyone else unless you are a licensed physician, pharmacist, nurse. You have to have some type of degree, especially in this state. We don't do any medical anything at my place, but you know, you also have to be smart. This is called the craft of the wise.
Sure.
And people they'll say, well, it's all natural. And I'll say, yes, so's poison ivy. So you've got to be wise about it.
I get that joke all the time because I'm Ivy. They ask me, are you poison?
Oh, no.
I get that all the time.
That's rude. You could also be English ivy.
Oh, that's a good point.
Boston ivy. That's a beautiful plant, too.
A Boston ivy?
Some ivies are amazing. Yeah. It doesn't have to be poison ivy.
I know. I always get the poison one. Don't know why. So on your show, you were talking about how people on a day-to-day basis probably encounter ancient spellcast ceremonies. For example, the blowing out the birthday cakes.
Yeah. Birthday candles.
Birthday candles.
Yes.
So are there other ways that people do participate in these ceremonies and they don't even realize it?
Oh, yes. Actually, yes. I had taken this off earlier because I didn't want to jangle, but on my keychain I have a little, this is a keychain made out of willow wood, and so many people, at least here in New England, if you were to say something like, you know, we haven't had a lot of snow this winter, knock on wood.
Oh.
This is made out of willow wood. My dad actually makes these for me because he's just lovely and 89 years old.
Aww.
And likes to keep busy. He's way in upstate Vermont now, but he likes to keep busy in the middle of winter up there. And they don't like have cable or anything up there, internet. And so he makes these little willow keychains and other things out of wood for me. But it's made out of willow, so I'm always knocking on it. And so that is something, knock on wood, people will do. That is an ancient superstition. And all superstitions have roots in ancient magic.
Wow.
There's so many things we do. I'd have to actually think about it. But if it's an ancient superstition, there's things to be found in all religions, but if you're talking just secular, not only recognizing birthdays, but recognizing special occasions, giving birthday gifts, those go back to, or any kind of gifts that are wrapped. I believe that goes back to the ancient Egyptians of giving a gift for a special occasion. And again, all of them go back to either offerings that they would give to the gods. And if you offered something to the gods, something would be given back to you. Except back then, the offerings were a little bit more intense.
People?
They would be a sacrifice of some kind, and the purpose for that was you needed to give something that was so important to you that it was a true sacrifice. You had to give up something that you really suffered by giving it up. And by giving up something that was a real sacrifice, then the gods would give you back something. So today, we don't see that as much, and it's more prayer, or if somebody does give something, it's usually more a token. There's a lovely place next to me that they have it's a Thai restaurant, and they have a little Buddha statue out there, and they fill the little bowl with candies and little stones, and I try to put a few out there myself.
What about like rubbing the belly on the...
I think that's supposed to be for good luck, but I don't know that they do that, but they do put little offerings of candy, hard candies, and little shiny stones and things like that, which I think is really sweet.
So when you knock on wood, like what does that like do? Because I know like somebody, they say something and they're like, oh, I hope that doesn't happen, knock on wood.
Yes, it's supposed to take the thing that you said. Like, you know, we don't have a lot of snow this winter, and I don't want it to, knock on wood, I don't want it to start snowing, because I'm not a big fan of winter, even though I've lived here my whole life. It is supposed to take almost like that taunt to the elements in this case, and it's deposited back in the wood.
Okay.
It goes back into the wood. We consider that all the things in nature have elementals, have elements, elemental spirits, wood and water. Wood is part of the earth. We have earth, air, fire, water, and the elemental spirits are part of the universe we live in. And those elemental spirits actually live in harmony with us as long as we live in harmony with them. And so when people are saying the earth is going through a climate crisis right now, it absolutely is. We are out of sync, we're out of harmony with the earth. We're doing some pretty awful things, and from wild animals acting strange, you know, whales beaching themselves, earthquakes happening, you know, fires, wildfires, all these kinds of crazy things. This is the earth saying, I'm not happy with you guys. We got to start balancing again. The elements are getting out of sorts. Yeah. And according to scientists, we only need to be a few degrees, not a lot, but only a few degrees out of sync with our normal Earth's temperature to annihilate the planet. So annihilate the human species of the planet. Will never destroy Earth, because once we're gone, the Earth will probably take 20 to 50 years and reset, and then
probably flourish.
Oh, it'll flourish. And what people don't realize is we are, at last count, we were the 29th, or we might be the 30th humanid species. I think they found another finger bone from yet another humanid species. So we are like the 29th or the 30th that has existed. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was at least one humanoid species before us that lived longer than we have.
Wow.
So we've had other, I mean, because before us you had Neanderthal, and then you had Cro-Magnon man, and you keep going back. So we're by no means the only one. That's why I do believe in a creator, because we keep screwing it up and we keep wiping ourselves out, and so the creator's like, okay, fine. What is it, the 28th?
You need to try again.
I'm gonna throw you back there again.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was really interesting, you know, when COVID happened and everybody was brought into the house, how nature like started flourishing again. Animals were coming out, grazing. There was dolphins in the East River in New York City, which why. 'Cause
isn't that
it's
crazy?
Dirty, but
because we
yeah.
stopped interfering with what was happening out there. And scientists that are aware of this stuff say it would not take very long at all for the Earth to basically take over if humans like disappeared tomorrow, and we wouldn't see any evidence of anything after a very short period of time. So it would take back and reset, and then we would go again. So, and I think the witches would come back again, because we've always been here. I mean, back in the 60s, we were the hippies. And before that, we were the suffragettes. And before that, we've always been here. We haven't always been women. There've always been men as well as women, but we've always been here.
Wow. So you're also a writer. Can you tell us about your blog, The Rag in the Bottle Shop? Or is you working on another one?
Oh, I'm writing on. I'm always writing something. Yeah, I had my blog, my magical blog, for over 10 years, and then I moved that onto the videos, and then I did The Rag and Bottle Shop, which is just magical fiction. I just finished a short story. I don't know, I might put it on The Rag and Bottle Shop just for fun. I decided it was about time after, 135 years to finish the story of Jack the Ripper. So I finished that. Not to identify who Jack the Ripper was, but why he stopped killing. So I came up with the reason why he stopped killing. So I guess now I have to put it out there.
Will we hear any of that on your show?
I don't know. I never thought about putting that on my show, but I will. You know, it's about 45 pages, so I might put that on my blog and let people read it if they want to. So I just write for fun. I get these ideas in my head and I just want to get it out. You know, sometimes I write lyrics, poems. I don't write the music to my songs because I have an amazing vocal coach who is a genius, and he writes all the actual melodies, and I just write the lyrics. So, but yeah, I like to write because I wrote a lot during COVID. I wrote like 3 songs. That's on my YouTube channel, if anyone wants to scroll down that far. But it was just, there was so much going on during COVID, and it was like really upsetting and stressful, and by writing, it got that out of me, and I was able to like put it down, and we recorded like 3 songs, and it was like, okay, great. So now that's out of me and I can move on, and that's how I get my stuff out without letting it eat at me, you know, or I'll paint pictures, or, you know, just hang out at the shop and do stuff there. So
awesome. So what should we look forward to in upcoming episodes of The Magical Adventure?
Alternative. It is an adventure.
Oh, sorry,
that's
alternative.
Okay. I do like that, though. The Magical Adventure. That's cool. That could be a segment. Well, we are going to introduce the Ask the Baba Yagas. So that's going to be a question and answer segment. The Baba Yagas are a concept of an ancient Eastern European witch that was one of the forerunners of Santa Claus. And that's where my ancestors are from, Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Poland. So we're going to have a little segment there. We're going to be introducing a good news of the world segment with a lot of interesting good news stories that'll make people smile and laugh, and hopefully some happy tears.
Wow. So what time is it?
It's every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. here on CVC, Community Voice channel in Bolton, as well as Roku, and now Fire TV, and on our YouTube channel, I have Shadow W Witch. So, yeah,
wonderful.
It's going to be seen everywhere.
I'm so glad we were able to chat.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations on your first interview.
Thank you. I loved it. Thank you for being here.
You're awesome.
Yeah, so thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Yeah.